You could now let the people in. I'm just putting a message that the webinar is open. The webinar is open.
There are already 32 participants, 34. It will go up.
Sorry?
34 participants already.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah. 28 attendees. Attendees. We will just start in a minute. Two, 34.
I think you should start, sir.
Right. Please start the recording. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Team CASA, I, Lieutenant General Gautam Murthy, founder of CASA, welcome you to the 27th CASA webinar on the subject Agnipath, the path ahead. In the recent past, there has been no issue that has triggered such a reaction within the veteran community as the Agnipath scheme unveiled at the press conference on 17 June 22 by the Raksha Mantri in the presence of the three service chiefs and the uniformed additional secretary of the MOD, that is of the Department of Military Affairs. That the scheme is highly controversial is not in doubt. As the contours became clear and the youth realized that the major avenue of a secure long-term employment closed on for good, protests broke out all over the country, fueled no doubt by others too, with no skin in the game except to show the government in poor light. Much has been written and spoken about the scheme. On the face of it, the advantages likely to accrue from it far outweigh the disadvantages. However, keeping emotions aside, is Agnipath the right way forward? To answer this profound and vexing question, we have a team of eminent experts from the three services who, along with the moderator, have a combined service of about 160 years in uniform. So without much ado, let me introduce the audience to our esteemed panel. Our first speaker of the evening is Air Marshal Anil Chopra, Pbsm, Avsm, VM, VSM. The Air Marshal was a flying instructor, test pilot, and a pioneer of our Mirage 2000 fleet. He commanded the Mirage Squadron and the aircraft systems and testing establishment of the Indian Air Force. He was a team leader of the MiG-21 upgrade Bison project in Russia for 4 years. He commanded operational air bases in both the western and eastern sectors. He was also AOC J&K, ACAS inspections, and retired as the Air Officer in Charge personnel. He was member of the Armed Forces Tribunal and a member of the Executive Council of the JNU for 2 years. An avid writer and author, he has published over 600 articles on strategy, defense, and aerospace, and has authored 5 books. The Air Marshal runs a website, APA Asia, on APA and strategic issues, and he took over as the Director General of the Center for APA Studies on 12th February 2021. We welcome you, sir, and we look forward to hearing your views.
Thank you.
The next speaker of the evening is Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, Pbsm, Avsm, SM retired, who's superannuated as the Director General of Military Operations after 40 years of distinguished service in the Army. Commissioned into the Elite Parachute Regiment in June 1974, the General is an alumnus of the Defense Services Staff College, the Army War College, the College of Defense Management, and the National Defense College. He has an MSc in Defense Studies, a Master's in Management Studies, and an MPhil in Defense and Strategic Studies. The General has wide-ranging experience in command, staff, and instructional appointments. His higher command assignments include that of a mountain brigade in North Bengal, an infantry division on the line of control, and an operational corps along the India-China border. His operational experience is varied as he has actively been a part of Operations Rakshak, Vijay, Rhino, Hifazat, Orchid, Falcon, All Clear, and Cactus, which was in the Maldives. He was also co-chair of the India-US Executive Steering Group on Defense Cooperation. After retirement, General Bhatia headed the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, one of the best regarded think tanks in the country. He writes and speaks regularly on wide-ranging subjects such as regional and national security, international relations, special operations, human resource development, human rights, psychological and information warfare, and operational philosophy. We welcome you, sir, and we look forward to hearing your views. Our third panelist of the evening is Vice Admiral Anil Chopra, Pbsm, Avsm, who is a former Commander-in-Chief of both the operational commands of the Indian Navy, that is the Western Naval Command and the Eastern Naval Command, as well as a former Director General of the Indian Coast Guard. He has also commanded the Western Fleet and the aircraft carrier INS Virat. As Assistant Chief of Naval Staff Policy and Plans, and earlier as Principal Director Naval Plans, he was extensively associated with the Navy's long-term force structure and financial planning. As member of the Apex Defense Acquisition Council for 3 years, he was involved with the ongoing evolution of the defense procurement procedure. He was a member of the NSAB also. He was a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council of the United States in Washington, D.C. Admiral Chopra retired in 2015 after 40 years of distinguished service. He is a much sought-after speaker on strategic issues. We welcome you, Anil, and we look forward to hearing your views. The moderator for this evening is none other than our core committee member, Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar, Pbsm, Avsm, VSM, who retired as Director General of the Artillery. He is an alumnus of the Defense Services Staff College, the Army War College, the Naval Postgraduate School at Monterey, and the National Defense College. He has held many important command, staff, and instructional appointments in the Army. He has vast operational experience, having served in all kinds of terrain and operational situations which have confronted the Indian Army in the past 4 decades. He gave great impetus to modernization of the artillery through indigenization. He has deep knowledge and understanding and experience in successful defense planning and acquisition, spanning over a decade. He is now a professor in Aerospace Department of IIT Madras. He is actively involved in applied research and writes and speaks extensively on strategic issues too. He has his own blog called Gunner's Shot, which is widely read with around 5 lakh hits per month, and has already penned 5 articles on Agnipath with a 6th on the way. So without further ado, I now hand you over to the moderator, General Shankar. But before that, a request to the participants, kindly type in your question and do offer suggestions. Offer your questions in the question box, but please do not repeat the points that have already been covered by the moderator and the panelists. Over to you, General Shankar.
Thanks a lot, sir. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to the panelists. I think it's a very apt subject to speak on. The Agnipath. The path is whatever it is, it's on fire. Now, having said that, it's indeed a great panel that is going to discuss this issue. What more can we expect? We have a AOP who's dealt with the personnel of a service. We have a CNC, rather, who's been CNC of both the seaboards, and a DJMO. And you're looking at me, who's been a head of an arm which is, as in fact, slightly larger than the Navy. So you're going to get a wide perspective of all issues. Well, at the outset, let me put it across. The Agnipath, as it comes, has been rolled out, has to meet three objectives. One is the national objective of transforming India and getting the discipline of the services infused into the civil society and uplift the national structure. The second is it needs to improve the operational effectiveness of the Indian armed forces as a whole. And third, it has to meet the aspirations of the youth. The aspirations of the youth, as a reaction, were quite violent initially, but then there are so many people applying for this, so we will leave it at that. And it's a very contentious issue, which I don't think even the government has answers at this point of time. So we will leave it at that. We will also leave the issue of fulfilling the national objectives, because that's a little far away. I think we all know that Agnipath is there. It's announced. And like in good fashion of the armed forces, we need to take it forward. We all know, and by and large, for many reasons, that this scheme might not be or cannot be implemented the way it has now thought. For the simple reason, already there are tweaks coming into it. Right? So we will, in this seminar and in this webinar, we will confine ourselves as to what are the fixes which we have to do, what is the path ahead, and what are the course corrections which we envisage ahead. I would request all the panelists to look forward. But to set the stage for looking forward, I'll look a little bit back and just highlight and enumerate at this point of time what are the seeming deficiencies which have come out in the public through various opinion makers. The first thing which people have said is that the training is shortened, and this shortened training will not be good enough to convert a village boy into a soldier after 6 months. Then in 2028, there's going to be an experience inversion. Whether you like it or not, that's the numbers, where in a unit, at the tail end, where it's a fighting unit or a ship or whatever it is, there are going to be more number of Agniveers with less than 4 years of service, 4 years and below, and lesser number of experienced people. And with a caveat, all the LMCs, by then you'll realize, will be in the older age group, which reduces the experience value in units. Then there's a huge amount of competitiveness which is being injected, because only 25% can get retained. And we all know from experience that competitiveness is the antithesis of esprit de corps, right? And the kind of turbulence which is going to happen at the base level of a unit or a fighting subunit, a company, a battery, a squadron, or a ship, right? That has to be factored in, and that is a major concern. Then all these people for retention have to be constantly assessed. I mean, we are looking at a situation where even officers for the first 2 years of service in the army are not assessed to take, keep them out of the pressure. And an OR isn't assessed till the time he becomes a lance knight. And here we're flipping it completely and going in for a 100% assessment model. Is it feasible, given the state that our officers, we are in a dire shortage of officers, and invariably a battalion or a regiment functions at about 50% strength of the officers in day-to-day thing. So there are issues in this. Then a major issue which has come out is regimentation is at risk, with this concept of all India, all class, which I don't think many people have understood it, nor has it been communicated well, and it is being bandied about in a manner as if this is just a colonial legacy. We've taken it forward without knowing that there's a whole history behind this. Then our training capacities are going to be under pressure because of the huge turnover and the extra numbers which have to be trained every 6 months. On that, again, it's mathematically, it has been proven time and again. Then, over the past 3 years, there's a vacuum of around 2.25 lakhs personnel in the armed forces which has accumulated. Is the government going to use this opportunity to do force reduction? Is a big question. Now, if you do that force reduction, how are you going to do it? And what is the effect at the bottom? If you don't do the force reduction and you make good the numbers with the number of Agniveers, then you're looking at a different problem altogether, because it affects the training capacities, it affects a whole lot of other things. Then, of course, we are looking at platform-centric services and arms, like the Air Force, the Navy, and the artillery, and even the armored corps, right? Where the numbers don't matter, but the platforms matter. And they're complicated platforms, and they're going to be modernized. And all this you're going to do when modernization itself is in a big question mark for all of us. So are you going to, why are you investing in these Agniveers only for 4 years? And then, as these complicated platforms get inducted, the cost, the lifetime cost of these platforms are going to increase if you don't handle them well. That's the point I'm making. The right man-machine mix. Are you clear about the machine that you're tampering with the man? Right? These are the things which I've highlighted. Like again, I said, there's no point in looking back and saying, look, all these are the problems ahead. I would rather request each of you to look ahead to say, okay, what do we do for all this? You might add a few more problems which come in, but we need the fixes. With this, I'd request Air Marshal Anil Chopra. Sir, over to you. 10 minutes. I'll give you a reminder, a minute short, so that you can wind up. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, General Gautam Murthy, for the generous introduction, and thanks to Team CASA, moderator General Shankar, and the very esteemed panelists, both good friends, and others who are logged in. I will strictly be on TOT, and within 10 minutes I'll finish. Yes. I do feel that Agnipath is a transformative, futuristic scheme, as they call it, and meant to reduce age profile, induct young, tech-savvy Agniveers. I am for it. It would improve prospects of the mainstream permanent guys, and these guys will be disciplined guys getting into the market with a good chance of getting a good job. There will be also savings to the exchequer, which we will not deal with at this moment. Indian Armed Forces have extremely poor teeth to tail ratio. Too many guys doing non-combat jobs. Our headquarters are full. NCR is full of people. I have been an AOP. We need to cut the flap. We need to push more guys out of the headquarters to the field. We have spoken a bit about it for years. As youngsters, I saw it. As AOP, I saw it, and I'm seeing it still today. The current AOP is talking the same language, but nobody is doing nothing. During the COVID and Galwan military managed to work with 1/3 the manpower in headquarters, in air headquarters at least, I know, and they were doing it very efficiently, and our forces were, the Air Force Army were extremely active. Indian Defense Forces have one of the most worst acquisition to revenue to personnel cost ratio. So I've got the figures for each country, and we have analyzed this in caps. It needs a change. I feel the Agniveer will be adequately motivated, he will be patriotic, and he will be capable. Is the scheme absolutely perfect? Maybe not. There are clear provisions to tweak it at the level of MOD. The CCS note says it very clearly that between service headquarters and MOD, they can tweak it at any time. It's already being done. Has the scheme been adequately analyzed and things factored in? The late CDS told me early last year that he had conceived it himself. Now, I don't know the truth. So maybe it is not pushed down our throats, but the chiefs, vice chiefs, and the HR heads told us that very detailed plans have been under scrutiny and discussion for last 6 to 8 months, and none of us should have any reason to doubt the integrity, professional capability of those who are running the current armed forces. And that's what they are telling us. They have told us in public in South Block when they invited us. During the briefing, 40 veterans were called to South Block. the day the scheme was released, and they did clarify many of our doubts. And General Bhatia, of course, was also with me that day. First issue is 4 years. Are they too less? The figure has arrived for some reason that individuals should be able to go back to the society, civil world, have a fair bash at a second career. But I personally feel that maybe it should go up to 5, 6, 7 years for us to be able to utilize him fully. But this will get evolved because we have time. The Agnipath is just entering service. So they can take a call after 2 or 3 years. We would become, yes, if they stay after 5 years, they'll become entitled to ex-serviceman status and get gratuity. So be it. Both do not need financially too much of implications. And that will also improve motivation of these guys. Initial training period of 6 months, I think, is adequate. Even for a tech-savvy, tech-intensive service like Indian Air Force, I did my first solo on a glider just after 6 months of Air Force training. Agnipath would do first-line activities in a fighter squadron. He'll touch the aircraft. He'll be doing work on the aircraft. He'll work at the airfield support operations. He'll do flying environment safety activities. He'll do base security, IT, operational networks, techno logistics works, administrative function, and many, many, many more, which the Indian Air Force has already, identified the kind of jobs these guys will do. Yes, they will not do second-line repairs, etc., which will be done by the permanent guys. And these guys, once they mature, will get another round of training. I'll give you examples. On MiG-23 aircraft, the Russians used to have 3 technicians to see off an aircraft on tarmac. In Indian Air Force, we're having 10 of them. Our Mirage 2000 training in France, I was there. 2 technicians who used to see off an aircraft. We wanted the same to be replicated in India, and we gave a presentation to air headquarters, but there was huge resistance. Finally, we had 6 to 8 technicians working on the aircraft. Are we lacking self-confidence? This is the way we want to be a superpower? Reluctance to change. I believe that. I believe that currently many of the tasks being done by officers can be done well or better by sergeants. I'm very clear about it. In fact, many of the young officers tell us that I have come from an IIT and you guys making me do such non-technical jobs on a tarmac, which can best be done on much, a JW or whatever the rank is. Now, operational capability. The new generation is very sharp. They will fit in well. We all joined service 50 years back. I have 10 years since retired. The level of intelligence of these young guys is way, way ahead of what we had at that time. So the IF's war fighting is mostly officer-centric. I don't see major issues. Short service commission officers did very well even in operational job. There were guys who left after 5 years in short service. I mean, they had contributed. Combat effectiveness will not go down. Will they be motivated enough? I think so. And we will be able to see that after 2-3 years. Now, pace of induction. Indian Air Force is starting with 3,000 a year. We will hit 50% between Agnipaths and old, air warriors after 10 to 12 years. There's a long period. So there's no big issue. For next 4-5 years, we'll have a look, and then I feel next 4-5 years, we should consider it as like a pilot project. I heard an officer say on TV that armed forces have done so well in all our wars since 1947. Where is the need to change? Well, interestingly, the same officer in another debate on theaterization said the change is the only constant. I personally believe the change is required in whatever way, including for various other things that are being discussed. The government of India has been telling the armed forces for over 3 decades, and I have been the head chairman of the PPOC committee of the 3 HR heads. And they are HR issues. All 3 services have different system of everything on HR is different. And we refuse to do it. That the government kept reminding us. Until today, we have not done it. I think it's most important that we resolve we get to the same grid on HR issues before even we talk of jointness. So I hope somebody in the government will one day push that also down our throat. Government ki pakki naukri. Yes, it's an issue. I respect the desires of the youth. This is something for the elected government to find. They must do whatever they think appropriate to find more jobs and give re-employment to every Agnipath that passes out. It's a government thing. The youth have the right to agitate. They have the right to sort of put pressure through their political chains. And the government must do whatever they feel appropriate. Not my job. I do believe strongly that absorbing certain percentage of Agniveers in alternate professions should be mandated by law. Verbal statements are not good enough. A little higher assurance is required. Over 100,000 have already applied for the 3,000 slots in Indian Air Force as of last evening. They are saying it will cross 200,000. So people, whether they are desperate for jobs or whatever, the people are going to come. You will have a good choice to make from the armed forces will get. Now, whether the similar scheme should have been applicable to CAPF or other government departments is not for me to decide. The government must decide who they want to apply. And I'm sure this must have been discussed at appropriate higher levels. We are the fastest finger first types, we armed forces guys. You know, I remember just before I had taken over the AOP, the government has come out with this NFU, and in 2010, approved by the Chiefs of Staff Committee, we had said to the government, NFU is a bad thing, it's terrible. We had built up a huge logic. And 1 year later, when everybody else took NFU, we started fighting and questioning, reversing our own logic. But to no avail till today, we never got the NFU back. So that's our own, armed forces problems. Will Agniveer become a gunslinger or anti-national element, which some of the people have been saying on TV channels just because he's done some arms training? No way. I don't think so. In fact, much more experienced guys are going on later in life at young ages of still 35, 40. They're not becoming gunslingers. I also believe that those who had gone through a complete process of selection of 1 to 2 years, about 2 years back, and they had cleared and the results were not announced. I thought that was unfair. We should have announced their results and taken them in and subsequently started the Agniveer. Naam Namak Nisha, meaning loyalty and motivation. In IF, we switch units and even aircraft. Many guys in Army are switching. This morning, I was having a talk with a Lieutenant General who is 3 generations in Dogras. He says, I was in Dogras, which is a Dogra unit, but when I went to command, I had to command, All India MEC force. And he said, I had no problem in that changeover took place. So we had no loss of motivation in Air Force, patriotism, squadron spirit. They're there. Same will be held for Agniveers. So I don't see any problem in that. Now, combat potential of the armed forces will not go down. I'm convinced myself, and the 3 vice chiefs have said it again and again in public as well as in private to us. Those who will become permanent, their 4 years must be counted towards pension, I feel, which as of now, they are.
We wrap up, sir?
Yeah, okay, I will wrap up. We do that when our guys join DSC in civil. I hope the disability pension will also continue to be admissible to the guys who leave the service. I do not believe that all ownership of the scheme is being put on military shoulders alone. It's whole government-driven scheme. I'm happy that all veterans unequivocally have condemned the violence that took place, and we remain apolitical. There should be no turning back. We should tweak as we go along. And it is incumbent upon us to support, as ex-servicemen, to support the services to succeed and make positive suggestions directly to the service headquarters, rather than doing chest thumping on television screens, which is very, very unfortunate. I met an IFS friend, a former ambassador, who asked me why the armed forces are always washing their linen in public. You never see a IFS, IAS, police, forest service, revenue service, or any others doing that. He says, we have our own systems of giving a feedback. You are belittling your own, brethren. We all have seen a major general captains doing a spat on the television. One very senior officer has called the 3 chiefs as spineless. He has called 3-star officers as stooges in public. Some others have even said much worse. We all know what veterans attack, the way veterans attack serious stuff in social media. I thought it was in very, very poor light. I will leave that over there. I think we have to be very, very careful. People are laughing at us and the others. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. One can see that you're totally for the scheme and pumped up about Agnipath and brought out a lot of positives about the Agnipaths. Be that as it may, a few points have come out which need a tweak and which we have to concentrate on to make the scheme successful. At the end of the day, the responsibility is to make the scheme successful, whether it's good or not. It's there. Right. The first point which you brought out is that we need to cut the teeth to tail ratio and flab. It's a huge mental change. And that mental change is totally dependent upon the senior officers. You also made the point that 4 years of is too short. And and this 4 years will be more of a pilot project. Yes, I agree with you completely, but there are attendant legal implications, because when you put out a terms and conditions of service, when you have this thing, I think all the MOD, the larger MOD, has to take this into account. Then there's the issue of reluctance to change. If you have to make this scheme successful, you have to shed that reluctance to a large extent, right? Yes, an important point which you made, which is different from the other services, is that the IAF is officer centric for operational purposes. That puts a slightly different color to the acceptability of the Agniveer scheme to the IAF, right? Then the issue of Naam, Namak and Nishan, I appreciate that you have spoken to a Lieutenant General who served in 3 different regiments. But the fact is that this whole business of Naam, Namak and Nishan, regimentation and everything is being spoken of in loose terms. The way I look at it, a regimented arm is all about, the regimentation is about the soldier, that he enters one unit and virtually retires there. Yes, there are minor turbulences, but 80% of them join the unit and retire from that unit, right? That is the crux of the Naam, Namak, Nishan. It's not officers, right? I leave it as that is. I think you made some very valid points, sir. With this, sir, we'll head into the sea, and I'll request Admiral Chopra to give his viewpoint about the Agniveer Sea, with this emphasis on Navy, and of course the rest of the things. Over to you, sir.
I think you jumped my order, General, but can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, thank you all, Chair, Master, everyone. Let me get on. Agnipath scheme, my perspective, the service period is clearly too short. Our training time is inadequate, especially so in the Navy, where it takes a couple of years to transform a landlubber into someone who can go into the alien environment of ships and oceans. You won't have much time left for operational exploitation. There is a counter argument that there are many low-end jobs in all the 3 services which could be done by these gentlemen, but then they will rightly feel aggrieved because they will become low-end labor, painting ship and storing ship and doing various such things, many jobs in all the 3 services. And that's not a nice way to run things when there is a divide, especially in a ship. As we say in the Navy, the cable is only as strong as every link in the chain, and it would not be right to have this sort of schism. Now, the Agniveers may be younger, but I doubt they're going to be technologically more savvy when they enter service, unless you count adeptness on a mobile and apps as being technologically savvy. There's more to it than that. So I don't think that is a plus point at all. And my biggest problem with the scheme is the selection business. Any selection after 4 years is inviting trouble. It's inviting resentment, court cases, corruption. You're setting yourself up for a lot of issues. I am for short service. I am not against the impetus of the scheme. In fact, I think it's time for a scheme such as Agnipath. But when you start doing this business of selection in a country such as ours, where there is a lot of fisticuffs for employment, you are asking for trouble. Now, all this, I think most of us are generally agreed on. Training period, the period could be extended, and you still need technological training, and we have to do something about this selection thing. Now, before I give you my views on what I think can be tweaked, a few things which need a little bit of brief attention. Now, there are various military models of standing armies. Firstly, armies are not necessarily standing. Many are raised from militia when required. It's only recently and in that countries have standing armies. And there are volunteer armies, there are conscription armies, there are issues of cost, but all have issues of age profile and a pyramidical structure. So it doesn't make sense for everyone who's joining the army, especially, to serve the entire 30 or 40 years just for a pension. That doesn't make sense. So therefore, the bulk of your armed forces, both officers and men, should be short service. And there was general agreement on this about 30 years ago. That's why the short service officers scheme and in any case, the men used to serve 7 to 8 or 9 years. There was no pension. We shot ourselves in the foot, as we have usually done, by extending this pension to everybody and getting to a money issue. And therefore, I think we need short service commission, short service service. And to that end, there is hope in this scheme. And we don't necessarily have to give pension to everybody. It's not charity, and the military is not there for either welfare or charity or for employment. Having said that, it is not the duty of any government to provide employment, and certainly not the duty of any military. The military exists for one thing, for effective deterrence and to win wars. Everything else is secondary. So don't get the military mixed up with employment and welfare and the state of society and avenues and schemes for employment. You're getting down into a lane from which there is no retreat. And then you will just become a service, just an employment service. So let's not mix up those things. Money matters. As he said, I dealt with the Navy's money for a long time. There is never enough money. And there are better ways to spend the money we get on manpower itself. I'm never one who says cut manpower for putting into weapons. There's a lot of money which needs to be plowed back into manpower, benefits, training, etc. General Bhatia will bear me out in the Chikatkar committee in which we were together. I'm not for this great craze for reduction of manpower. I don't agree with the Marshal Chopra there. Manpower has a quality of its own. It's becoming fashionable to say we are overmanned. We are not. At least in the Navy, the headquarters are so sparse that my headquarters were unnecessary, working till 10 at night. And I had to get people kicked out, not because they were trying to impress me, but the work was just too much of a small skeletal headquarters, even at command level, to keep the whole fleet out at sea. So it's different in different services, and there is no real, thing about manpower. But let's put it like this, that we are also very fond of saying P through tail ratio is high. In a technologically advanced service, the tail has to increase. It takes more manpower to maintain gas turbines than it used to do in steamships. And for unmanned aircraft, you require almost the same manpower as manned aircraft, if not more. As I am always fond of saying, NASA requires 80,000 people to put 2 chaps on the moon. So don't decry the tail. You need it to fight, especially to fight technological wars. You just can't have teeth of chaps charging in bayonets in the old days. The tail is very important. And again, there is issue, reduce manpower, outsource it, private contractors, this whole business of feeling that we are overmanned. The army fights with men. God is still on the side of the bigger battalions. Boots are still needed on the ground. People still have to occupy and administer. What is this craze of replacing, reducing manpower with robots, men with machines, just because you've got them a little dependent after they finish 20 years? So I would warn against this easy way to cut costs by reducing manpower and replacing men with machines and throw them away. Life cycle costs of machines are almost as much as those of men, including their dependents, for overhauling, for upgrading, for replacement, for obsoleteness. We just go into it a little bit. It's not, manpower is not the problem. Pension is a problem. And therefore, I'm with the scheme because it tries to reduce the number of people who are on pension just because they were uniform for 5 or 6 years. Not acceptable. Pension is something you give to people who serve long and have and something that is given as a benefit there. So there is room for this. Now, to cut the flag, what am I suggesting? It's a little novel, but I believe that there should be 2 separate, parallel, concurrent streams. A long service, pensionable entry, and a short service, non-pensionable entry, both running in parallel. And the short service, non-pensionable entry goes home, all of it, no selection, no opportunity for corruption, no opportunity to be one-upmanship, no one to try to impress the CEO. All this nonsense can stop. We need short service, Let's have it. Let them go. Let them go. Think of the military, not always of the welfare of people you're letting go. Many of them will succeed. Many of them will fail. It depends on life, fate, destiny, many other things. But they will have gained from those 8 or 9 or 10 years where I think this short service commission should be. They will have a stamp. They will get their honor in due course. Should get, and you have to make the short service attractive. So what will make it attractive? One is during their period of service, give them a degree. If they already have a graduate degree, let them do a postgraduate degree. Education, social mobility is important and a time-tested way of allowing people to leave the service after getting an education, after getting skilling, after getting a certain amount of lump sum when you leave, getting some benefits, maybe not canteen, not medical, not pension, some innovative ways. Maybe you can give them some travel benefits. Otherwise, that will all depend on the exchequer. How much the ratio should be flexible, how much the ratio should be of serving, permanent, long-term and short-term, should be kept flexible, should never be fixed, should be dependent on the service. I may need at one time 60% on long service and 40 on short service. Tomorrow I might need the reverse. Why are we laying down ratios and fixed ratios? Be flexible in that. So in effect, what I am suggesting, so how do you make the short service really attractive? By law, as we've all said in hundreds of articles and people on television, you make the entry into CAPEFs by law, not by promise. It's going to be a big political battle for the government, any government. But you have to, people who want to volunteer for the other security services after a stint in the armed forces must by law be able to do so, medical category being okay. Unless you do so, that's one way. But experience in developed countries, many people after 10 years leave. They want to become entrepreneurs. They want to join industry. There you can't make a law. You can't force industry to take people. Just like you can't force defense services to take people. But you can force government servants to take people. I'll just finish.
Right.
So, there's not very much time you've given us, unfortunately. But I'm rushing ahead.
We'll get back to you, sir, because there are a lot of questions.
No. So what I'm trying to say is one last thing on the regimental system, which is Army, but a Navy bloc will chip in. It's not a colonial legacy. It is a legacy from the British Army, which also has regiments, which also fights with the Irish Guards or the Scots Guards or the Queen's Grenadiers or the Coldstream Guards, because they find when a man fights for his regiment, he fights well, besides fighting for God, King, and country. So when we say that the Indian Army wants to carry on with its regimental system, it's for good reason. People fight better. And as I keep saying, the Army fights with men, not with platforms. So there's an important thing there about the regimental system. Okay, I've been a little emphatic, but you will note I have not been either sentimental or emotive. And I think one of the things we are suffering from is too much of excitement and emotionalism in our discussions, which detract from the rational points which we make. I have much more to say, but I'll stop here.
Thank you, sir. I am glad you said it with a smile. And I think all of us should debate this whole event with a smile and not be emotive about it. We have to be professional about it. And we have our professional views and we need to respect each other's professional views.
Right.
No matter how good or bad we feel about the others. But that having said that, I think you made some very important points to see the way ahead. I think a core issue which you made, which I'd like to highlight, is that armed forces are meant to fight, defend the sovereignty and the security of the nation. We should leave the resettlement and all the other hygiene and sanitation factors to the government. The government has to take onus and responsibility of this. And this is something which I think, my personal view, leadership, the current military leadership has to focus on. You made a very telling point about the training being too short, and 2 years is not enough to absorb the technology which is coming in. If you're modernizing, you have high tech, and too high tech is the antithesis of 10th standard pass, trained for 6 months. And it's the antithesis of maintaining high tech weapons, because not knowing how to handle them not knowing how to handle high-tech weapon platforms is going to be a very costly affair in the long run. And I'm telling you, because I inducted the Pinaka weapon system, and I know the costs we had to pay when we put untrained soldiers to mess up things. And they do mess up things, that's part of the life, part of our own learning curve. A very important point which you made, sir, is the divide between the Agniveers and the non-Agniveers, or this thing that schism as to how to handle it is a issue. And you also made a point that we need to have a parallel concurrent system going. The divide and the schism, one way or the other, will be there. This is something which I think the armed forces have to chart out a course as to how to handle it. Right? And short service is the way forward. I completely agree with you. Whether the Agniveer way is the way forward or the other way is the way forward, it needs a debate again. Right? It does need a debate. I don't think it is ended. Yes, we can all agree to the fact that the short service is the way forward. Right. You also made a point that the manpower is not too much. I'll go with it. There's a propensity to think that we need to cut the tail. That means all your maintenance systems, X, Y, Z need to be cut and pared down, workshops cut down and all that. But it is these people who are going to keep your weapons on road, your ships on road, your tanks on road, and your aircraft on in air. If that doesn't happen, and the ships on seas, not on roads, the day the ships come on the road, then we will have a major problem. Right. So I think this entire business of teeth to tail, we need to rethink when we talk of high tech. Right. And it is my experience also that high tech doesn't mean that you cut manpower. Invariably, the manpower increases. Okay. And you made a very telling point, sir, about the regimental traditions. I think personally, the way the messaging has come across, whether it's from the NSA, the chiefs, the various commentators, the veterans, X, Y, Z, the entire business of regimental ethos, Naam, Namak, Nishan, the regimental system, the regimented arms which are there, the class composition, everything has been grossly miscommunicated to the public. And there's a wrong perception that this is a colonial system as against a system of fighting, as a integrated system of fighting. I mean, it is not without purpose that you have 3 or 4 ships called Ranvijay, all those Ranveer in the Navy, having affiliations with the Rajput regiment, and simultaneously the Indian Air Force squadrons also coming onto it. There is some value with what we have done. You can't just break them off. Right, with this, and I think this is a point which we need to build on. This is one of the great strengths of the Indian Armed Forces. Right. With this, sir, I thank you for your committed comments. I'd request the ex-DGMO. He was my DGMO when I was ADG-RT, and I learned a lot from him. So please educate us more. Over to you.
Jai Hind, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Always a privilege and a learning experience with the CASA platform, and my old colleague Jani Shankar has reversed the seniority from Army, Navy, Air Force to Air Force, Navy, Army, and
well,
whatever I had to speak has been spoken to by the two Anils.
I'll just put it this way. I started from the air, went to the sea, and then came to the land.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Because ultimately, all of us have to live on the land.
No, but as everything is changing and changes the constant, continuous, I think we should be changing this also. What is Agnipath actually? The thing is the hijacked Agniveers and what is Agnipath? Agnipath is a recruitment scheme, right? Nothing has changed. The recruitment base remains the same. The recruitment criteria remains the same. The selection system remains the same. What has changed? The terms and conditions of service. Right? Now, Agnipath, what does it try to do? It is not Agnipath alone. There are 5 factors which are there. 1, its impact on combat effectiveness, spoken to by both my predecessors, esteemed panelists. 2nd, defense preparedness. 3rd, right sizing, which you covered, absolutely right. Right sizing of the force. by default or design. I think it's mostly by design. The third thing is change the DNA of the armed forces, already all class, regimentation and things like that. And next is the aspirations of the youth. Now, are we trying to achieve a little too much by one scheme? The answer is yes, definitely. Now, whenever transformation takes place, and it is transformative, there's no doubt about it. Air Marshal Anil Chopra said it very rightly. There are 4 or 5 T's to be bothered about. One is no turbulence, less turmoil, good transition management. The timing of the transformation is very important, right? And now we have this again back to the T2 issue. So we are getting a little confused as to what do we want. We want to address all issues in one go through Agnipath. It's not going to happen. Let's focus on Agnipath. I am an optimist, but in this particular case, I don't think there is anything good in it, honestly. And I will ask you with the way forward. I've been raking my brains since yesterday. What are the good points and what is the good way forward? What is the good transition management? Honestly, I have not really come to acceptable answers. But as decisions first, discussions data has been rolled out, I will try to see what possibly can be done. It is soldier centric. The armed force is soldier centric, and General Patton said so. The army is made of soldiers, and the nation only as good as the army or the armed forces for that matter. We have man behind the machine. Soldiers do matter. Taking Galwan as an example, after Galwan, the PLA has started a new sort of unit, basically of regular soldiers, not conscripts, because they saw that the conscripts had run away and not fought as well as they should have, and they're creating these units into the Tibetan border, known as wolf warriors, right? And here we are converting our share to sheeps, the people who fought out there, because they fought for the unit, they fought for the regiment, they fought for the task they were given. So, the intangibles, whatever we may call these things, the intangibles, we fight for the unit actually. So that has not been seen. Now we want a soldier to train for 6 months and serve for 3.5 years, and in a competitive environment where only 25% of them will be selected for a full-time job. The youth aspire for a full-time job. Let's face facts. India, unemployment today is at its peak. Unemployment always there, but today it's crossed all limits, I suppose. And the youth want any job for that matter. And army was or armed forces was a preferred job because a permanent job with a pension. We have changed that now. I see no reason why anyone would like to join the armed forces the first choice. You would like to join the CAPF. So it is good for the nation, but I'm looking at the armed forces first because the armed forces have to ensure the defense of the nation. We've been speaking about, one positive I see a very confident India. I see a very assertive India. When the world is in a disorder, we have China knocking at our doors. We have the Russia-Ukraine war on, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, and Myanmar, the region itself. So there's an emerging world order which is actually a disorder, and we try to tweak or change an essential element of national power. That's the military, which gives us the voice. We aspire for a seat on the high table. We aspire for a seat in the elite clubs which make the rules for a global order. A rule-based global order when we talk about. Who does that? We should be there. We are India. We are a risen power. We are a responsible power. We are a regional power. We are a global leader. Everywhere we are there. But we are tweaking the essential element of national power, comprehensive national power. We contribute to that. So let us look at that. If we are not tweaking, there's a transition period. What will happen in the transition period? The PLA could not handle the transition period. If you look at it, that's a transition period. They couldn't handle it. That's 2020. After they completed the PLA modernization, they came knocking at our doors. So I think we are doing a thing wrong. Then we have one nation, number of policies. The same policy is not applicable of reducing manpower to CGTA, which is paid out of the defense fund. You start Sparsh, a thing which is outsourced, you come it back. You have 500,000 civilian employees after the OFP has been corporatized. Are we looking at it? Is that the tail we're looking at? 27 organizations under the Ministry of Defense. Are we looking at it? Why are we tweaking? Why are we playing? Why are we experimenting with our strengths? That is my question. That's the key question, and I don't have an answer to it. Why are we trying to change the DNA of the armed force? What is the requirement in the first place? Right? It is not okay. Now, having said that, the complete focus is shifted after the protest from Agnipath to Agniveers. Agniveers have become the focus. What do the Agniveers do? How will they get selected? How will they be rehabilitated? And now, if we incentivize it too much, firstly, Agniveers is, it is a second choice armed force. There's a lovely article in the Times of India yesterday about a village, James Swag's village. It's a very nice one, where every youth inspired to join the army. James Swag is the role model. Of course, bit of ours is the role model, right? Now, when this youth now don't want to join the army, what will happen to the base of the army? I have a little time. I would like to quote a very small example. As a second lieutenant, intercompany boxing ho rahi thi hamari usme. And this smart young recruiter had come, a very smart chap. I put in the boxing team, and after the first punch, in the first 5 seconds, he laid down, refused to get up. After a week, this Subedar from the Rajput regiment, mustaches and all, he came and he met me. And I was 20-year-old. I didn't know anything about anything. And he said, "साहब मुझे इसको फोर्स से निकाल दो." मैंने क्यों निकालते हैं? अच्छा है, हो जाएगा, ठीक हो जाता है कभी-कभी। कहते हैं नहीं साहब, ये मेरी चोट नहीं हो सकती। Okay, please understand what I'm trying to say. ये मेरी चोट नहीं हो सकती. Now, as a 20-year-old, I don't know what he meant. So I went to the company commander saying, he said that means that it is not his son. Okay, so that is the pride which our rural people take on the armed forces. A man has to go back to the village. If he survive in the village, if his family has survived in the village, if his sisters have to get married, he has to get married. He has to prove his salt. That's when we say namak, intangibles in the unit. Now we are tweaking that also. So too much of tweaking. Okay, way ahead. Firstly, the face of the Agnipath, unfortunately, on the armed forces. And tomorrow, if it doesn't succeed, we will lose the credibility. We will lose the respect of the people. So the ownership and accountability should be taken by the government of India, which I don't see happening. So that is one recommendation which CASA could give. It should be openly done. We should not lose credibility. 2, now that it's been rolled out, please treat this as a pilot project. Take this 4 years as a pilot project. Try and just make Agnipath a success rather than trying to do everything else. Don't do AIAC with it. Don't do right sizing with it. Let that be different exercises altogether. Right? Don't create too much of turbulence at a time when everything is in disorder. So do that. Don't do incentivization of the Agnipaths. Too much incentivization will create cutthroatism, competition among them in the units. I still don't understand how a technician will serve for 4 years and be good. How a soldier will fit into a team for 4 years. He can't fit into a team. It takes 4 to 5 years to become a soldier, to fit into a crew, to fit into a section, ship, a squadron, be a gun detachment. How will he repair radars? I don't know. Aircraft, ships, submarines, boiler room, engine rooms. The works. I really don't. Anil, you recruit ITIs. We were told to recruit ITIs. ITIs don't teach this. They don't have this equipment. Technology.
Can we wrap up, sir?
Okay, right. We talk about technology. 80 to 90% are technology, low to medium technology. That has not changed. Right? And when you talk about technology induction, technology also, force multipliers, multiply forces. Are we looking at force substitutors? No. So let us start with focusing only on Agnipath and not try to change too many things. That is one second recommendation which I would give. So 2 major recommendations is ownership, pilot project, and don't try and create too much of turbulence in everything. Don't link it to right sizing. Don't link it to regimentation. Don't link it to anything more than that. Just try defense preparedness, combat effectiveness, and the recruitment process. Don't try to achieve too much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you made some telling points. Yes, the first point I think all of us, all the panelists have made is that this is going to be a transformative change. The question at hand is, how do you make it a success rather than ending it as a failure? Because if it fails, the credibility of the armed forces is at stake. the sovereignty and integrity of the nation is at stake. To that extent, I think I go with all the panelists who say the government has to take greater ownership. Today, the visible face of the Agnipath is our chiefs and the ASDMA and all those people and the veterans who are talking. So that is something which is a major thing which has come out from all three. You made a point about PLA getting experienced soldiers after the Galwan experience. I'll just add to it. Look at Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't know where it's going to get its next cup of tea from. And that is our sworn enemy, or rather for Pakistan, India is the sworn enemy right from its inception. Yet, the one thing it has not tampered is its soldiers. The major thing which it fears is our soldiers. Why are we transforming this stock is something which I have not also been able to rationalize. The way forward, as you said, has to be gradual. I think we need to look at it. Right? And you made another point, which is very, very important, which we've been crying and nothing has happened about it. We talk of teeth to tail ratio. We talk of the military tail, but there's a huge civil tail. And that civil tail has only grown bigger and bigger. The latest addition to the civil trail, the civil tail has been that Sparsh, which it took me 7 months to download a payslip from. That's our pace of transformation. Believe you me, yesterday was the first time I could download a payslip from the Sparsh system. Everyone says, look, we need to formalize this in a better manner. And this is almost a pilot project. The first 4 years is a pilot project. Let's formalize this as a pilot project. All of us have said this should be treated as a pilot project. Yes, in my own analysis, for the first 4 years, there's no problem in this because then nothing changes, right? Till 2026. Our problems will start after 2026. Somewhere around 2024, and this is my prediction. And this is my model prediction, which I put out. You will have the turbulence of Agniveers and the divide coming in and HR problems and man management problems in the unit, and they'll start boiling over in 2026. In 2028, when the inversion takes place at cutting edge fighting companies, batteries and squadrons, we are in trouble. We have to have fixes by then. And we will not have fixes by then till the time this is treated as a formalized pilot project. Right? A major point which you made, I conceptually, is the issue between force multipliers and force substitution. I think we have missed the wood for the trees here. We felt that technology and modernization is force substitution. It's not, it's force multiplication. The connotation of force multiplication and force substitution has I think been missed out of the dialogue completely. And this is something new, which today at least has dawned on me. With this, sir, I thank you all the panelists for giving such great comments, for giving such great presentations. I'll take over the questions. I'll go over the questions. There's quite a bit, and we'll spend about half an hour on these. And I'll keep directing the questions to each one of the panelists as they come up. Right. Okay. The first question is from Shrikant Kulkarni. He says, there's always the lurking possibility that someone might go to the Supreme Court and obtain a decision to make the entrant serve as permanent cadre and defeat the 4-year plan, right? And he also follows it up saying there are reports that one particular community has been asking its clerics to ensure that the members of that community join en masse. Their ulterior motives could be anti-national. Should we be worried? Well, I will not we'll not take on the second question at all, because I think this is beyond the scope of this kind of a discussion. But I think the first question is something which we could tackle. May I request the former AOP to handle this, because this is the thing which he would have handled in good measure.
You know, I have been in AFT. We have seen enough of cases and the type of cases, and be in AOP. That's okay. If somebody goes to Supreme Court, there is a law of the land, and the Supreme Court will feel that some constitutional requirement has not been met by the government of India. They will question the government of India. So, I mean, I think we don't have to worry about this part.
Right.
People are going to courts. AFT, I have given judgment on 1,100 cases. I mean, these cases will carry on. And Supreme Court knows what's to handle, and there are some areas Supreme Court knows it's the job of the executive to decide. So I don't see any issue. Well, if Supreme Court feels that some constitution has been violated, they will give a judgment, and then the government will have to look at it. Yes, no
Thank
issue.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Then there's a question from Brigadier Dinesh Mathur. He's an old-time gunner. He was the brigade commander when I was just a BM in 15 Brigade, and he used to command 85 Brigade. He says, we had the good old, well-tried out 7x8 system, which was functioning well till 1976. Could we not have reverted to this system instead of experimenting with the untried Agnipath? Your views, sir, General Bhatia, sir.
Well, Brigadier Dinesh Mathur was the battery commander when I joined the unit.
It's
And of course, he's the instructor at the staff college also. Thank you, sir. Good connecting with you. The key driver for Agnipath is money, saving money. So if they do it for 5 years, as we were told in the briefing, and Air Marshal and Chopra also there, that if it is a 5-year service, then they have to pay out gratuity. So it was kept at 4 years, though the Army was not very happy. It was 7+8 earlier, and after the 7, the CO gave the 8 years, and most of the men went after 15 years pensionable service. Only the troublemakers and some, who were really bad, they were left after 7 years. So that is the reason, sir, as money drives the Agnipath scheme, it would have defeated the very purpose, the very aim of the Agnipath scheme, which is the payout of monies, which we have to save on the defense budget. And as for this thing, it is not the, I have the Agnipath brochure actually, this with me, and I would have a pen drive also. And so it doesn't talk about defense pensions at all. It is missing. Okay, so that is my concern. It doesn't talk about pensions, and everyone talks about, we'll get monies for defense preparedness. The money will go to the Solid Fund of India also. Let me tell you that. And rightly so, they're competing at the national level. Let the nation decide where they want to put the money. So that is one of the reasons, sir, 7+8 has not been done. It's kept to 4 years because there's no payout. After 4 years, there's a 1 month gap in service for those 25% selected, so that 4 years also is not accounted for the pension, which I think is very unfair to the to the man. And that's my feeling.
Thank you, sir. I think that's a very right way. In fact, the biggest grouse with this entire Agnipath, if I have, is that this is financially driven. The operational outcomes, the post individual aspirations, everything has been glossed over. In fact, I'm going to put out an article. I've given out the draft also to the Sunday Guardian. Hopefully this weekend it will get published. Most of the problems, vexing problems on the human HR side about this scheme are contained in the 5th, 6th, and the 7th pay commissions. It's surprising. You just tweak those, put it in, and Agniveer is solved. Really. But then that's a different ball game. We'll not get into it. Right. The next question is from General P.R. Kumar, who was a DGMO and my fellow gunner. Right. He says the point has been made that Agniveer will do all jobs other than aircraft servicing. When do they learn the technical training? After the 25% has been selected, that is after 4 years. Needs more elaboration. It's training them before and this thing. Sending them out within the is unworkable. I'll not direct this question to Air Marshal Chopra, sir, because this is a common question for a platform-centric force.
Yeah.
I'd request Admiral Anil Chopra to answer this because, look, having been ENC of 2 commands, and I'm sure he's handled enough of the naval, the Air Force also. The air element of the Navy, I'm sure he'll have the right answers for this.
I think we've already been through this. It's been kept at 4 years because of gratuity. Clearly, we need it to be 7 to 8 years. for any meaningful training to be exploited. Otherwise, what happens is you'll be training guys and you will not exploit them for too long because they would have left service. So what I said in the beginning, that if you keep this at 4 years, then what we are going to be able to do in all the 3 services is to give them basic training and then use them for low-end jobs. Certainly not with expensive weapons and sensors or where it is operationally, and tactically critical. So, like I said, one of the tweaks which is coming out from all and sundry and across the entire debate is that short service is good, but 4 years is not okay. And 4 years needs to be tweaked. And if something has to be tweaked, maybe gadgetry can be tweaked to 7 years or whatever. But that will lead to a hue and cry in the other parts of the government employees. So I don't see how they'll do it. But I think I'm pretty sure this 4 years will get extended in due course of time.
Hey, Marshal, sir,
Yeah, I want to just add about the technical work point of view. I must tell you that, even today, the second line work, if I have to repair a radar of an aircraft or engine of aircraft, guy who repairs it 6, 7, 8 years of service, be sure the first 3, 4 years he spends on tarmac. What does he do on a tarmac? He can change the radar, but he cannot repair it. He will be given a serviceable radar, he will change it, or he will change a tire, he will change so many other things on the aircraft. But these second line jobs are normally done by guys who have already 6 to 7 years of service, even today. Forget about the Agnipath. So the point I'm making is that in the first line jobs, which are related to aircraft, there are lots of jobs that he will check serviceability of every system on board the aircraft. It doesn't require him to be repairing a radar. So the point I was making is that there are lots of technical jobs. He will not be doing guard duty. He will not be doing, in any case, we in the Air Force don't even have somebody in the canteen or anywhere else uniformed guy. So the point I'm making is there are a whole heap of technical jobs, first line jobs, which doesn't require more than that much of training. Yes, all repairs, even today, are being done by guys with 7, 8 years. And after 4 years, he's going to go through another package of 6 to maybe a year's training. So that's okay.
Right. Let me weigh in on this because this, I think, is a very fundamental and important point. Having handled missile systems, having handled gun systems, inducted complicated gun systems into the Indian Army, I think this 4-year period is too short. Right? It is just not the matter of maintaining an aircraft, or fixing a tire. It's much beyond. If I look at it, a tank crew or a gun crew, 3 to 4 years, that fellow is you just invested in him and he's at the time where he can handle bigger things. Right? If you have to fire a long-range missile system, there's an issue of maintaining it day in and day out. There's an issue of checking it out. And this is not logistics. This is the chap which the gun detachment does. Then it's ability to bring it in, camouflage it in the field, put it on the thing, and then fire it with all the technicalities involved. It is no less technical. And this is a complicated thing. It is not a good old gun. And if you're transiting from this to that, there are issues. So I think the point is well made. The 4 years is just too short. A tweak has to come. When it will come is this thing, because if you don't take the call today, you're going to have legal issues tomorrow. So we'll leave it at that, sir. Then there's a question. He says, it has come now in a different form. And I'll pose this to the DGMO. Is it not the scheme is doing too many things at a time with respect to optimization of manpower, altering the regimentation culture in the army? While we have seen earlier, the same experiment done in 1984 has not yielded much fruit. And finally, short-term training for Agniveers, all at a time when we face 2 different security threats from China and Pakistan. The point I'm making is, will it not affect the operational efficiency of the forces, given the challenge we face on our northern and western borders? General Bhatia, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no denying what's been said. We have major security challenges right now. The timing is incorrect, as said so. We're trying to do too many things at the same point of time, creating turmoil. That's the second part of it. We are trying to, money drives it, but then we want to do everything together. So I think this is something which I have also covered. I agree with the question totally. I don't see answers. The point is, where do the answers lie? Okay, we'll see it through for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. But what happens in the long term? And our security are not going to go away. We'll not be able to change Pakistan's behavior in the next decade. Let's face it. It's been 30 years plus now, or 70 years in a way. So how do we change Pakistan's behavior is the key challenge in the mid to long term. And for that, we need a strong military. How do we deter China's aggressive behavior? For that, we need a strong military. And if we do not have a strong military, we're taking the model of, Agnipath scheme, taking the model of the US, UK. Their security challenges are different. Their recruitment ways are different. What is Israel? 9.8 million people, half of Delhi. There's a total difference out there. In the US, there are no optees. The recruiting officer, I've been a director recruiting. We're talking of 100,000 for one vacancy in Haryana and Himachal. I was the director of Ambala, which looked after Himachal. You got a few thousands volunteers for one vacancy earlier. And if you are not careful enough, and if the gate was not strong enough, there would be a stampede. And it's happened so many times. That is the rush. In the US, the recruiting officer has to actually get people and do wrong things to fill in the vacancies, because he gets the vacancies to fill in. So I think we're doing some. I really have no answers to this.
All right, so I think we'll pose this question in some form to the government in some forum. But I think there's an adjunct to what you have said in the question which has come and which all of us have thought of. The scheme as it is has been modeled on the experience of many armies and many nations in terms of how to get the Agnivir scheme in, or the Agnivirs in along the Agnipath. But I don't think we are focused on the exit models which others have. The exit models, everyone says this is what we've studied and this is the way they're being taken in. But have we studied the exit models of the other armies and evolved an exit model? Because this was beyond the armed forces, and the government of the day or the bureaucrats of the day have not factored this in. And this is a great schism which as it exists today. I just thought I'll highlight this. Right. Okay. Then there's one, I think, a very sensible question which has come in, because at this point of time, this scheme envisages a person does 4 years service and then has a break and then goes home and then comes back after selection. This has something which has not been debated, and I'd like all three of you to weigh in. There's an enforced gap in service after 4 years. What is going to be the effect on the operational effectiveness of a person who's taken a 1 year break at a formative stage and he comes back as an experience?
It's a 30-day break, one month break.
Okay, sir. Okay, I thought it was 1 year break.
One month. It's like a leave. It's like a leave. Yeah.
Right, sir. Right. There's a next question which says, some years back, the Indian Air Force extended the pensionable service period of airmen as there was a high attrition of trained airmen leaving IAF early. Now the same service is willing to let out 75% of trained manpower laid off after 4 years. Is it not contradictory? And it is not only to the Air Force, though Marshal Chopra, I see, is a little eager to take it on. But this applies to everyone. No, sir.
No, you give this question to.
No, sir. No. Yeah, please carry on. No, please carry on. But this applies to all of us. It applies to everyone.
So you tell whosoever you want.
No, you carry on, sir.
No,
for you. This
okay,
is for you.
No, fine, fair enough. See, my contention is, over the years, not once, for last 30 years, I can tell you, There are some trades where we have seen shortfalls. We have seen sometimes in radar shortfalls or in weapons. So there have been cases, and this will continue forever. It's been happening for ever since the Indian Air Force was formed. When there is a shortage in a particular trade, you make a local restriction for next 3 years, 4 years. The radar guys will, will not give pre-release. We will not let them go. Prematurely, we will not let them. It's happened for pilots. There was a stage when we were letting go pilots freely go and join the airlines. Then we found that there was a flood of people left. Then we felt, oh, it's short. 3 years later, they again, tightened this kind of a thing. And it happens trade by branch, and this will continue to happen. I mean, so these are HR management issues. If I find I'm short of a particular trade, I will stop their premature release. So I don't see. And one more very small point I want to mention is, which General Bhatia mentioned, there are only 3,000 people coming in. I know force of 127,000 in our case, Air Force. The 3,000, nothing earth-shaking is going to happen as per me. Even not in 2026, nothing earth-shaking is going to happen for 8-10 years. So then, of course, things will slow. And by that time, I presume that people would have learned their so-called pilot portal would have been through. And we will, I guess, people that time will take their call.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Your point of view is well the same. If you want me to hit the nail on the head, while other things, the major problem is going to come for the army, because you're looking at a huge change in ethos and many other issues. And whatever is the experiences of or the repetitions of the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force are only going to be largely contributory factors. It is not that they're going to this thing, but the major problem which is going to be faced is by the Indian Army. And as Admiral Chopra also pointed out, and as per general this thing, we are still a continental nation with 2 borders, 8,000 kilometers of borders, live borders, right? And we have to fight there. So the efficacy of this is going to be there. And I think somewhere this point is missing out in the national debate. I'll leave it as it is. I've highlighted the point. We'll leave it at this. A point which Admiral Chopra did bring out, and I think all 3 of us can weigh in. All 3 panelists had requested them to weigh in, and it's a very pertinent question. So, what is the criteria for 25% being absorbed in the service? What are the services planning for second career of remaining 75% 4 years? I'm not interested. We'll not take it. But the criteria is important. How will the armed forces address or mitigate against corruption in their selection procedures, including selection of? I would say, how do you handle this 25% retention and 75% extinction from the system is a major issue which I think all of us have touched on. Sir, I request, please, sir.
I think this is a very, very major concern. And that's why my recommendation would be your short service streams, whether they are in officers or in men, must not have a selective process at the end of it. They must all go. And there has to be a parallel stream. What we are trying now is pretty weird, because we're trying to make the short service chap into a percentage of them into long service. This is going to, after we've heard everybody, and there's so much of mara-mari, as they say, to get into the service, and to remain there will become even worse. And as somebody said, what's wrong with sending people who've been educated and skilled into the civil world, especially if they have a legal system, or at least more facilitation into other government services and otherwise. Any selection within service is going to create major problem with the moral fiber of the serving services. So my biggest grouse against this scheme is this subjective selection at the end of 4 years, when you barely know the chap and you can barely assess. Totally subjective.
Thank you, sir. Can we have your views, General Bhatia sir, on this? Because I think this is a very important issue and it is going to affect the health of our units.
I've covered this in a way. What is a unit? Unit is it's a team where everyone wants to be an effective member of that team. He has to live in that team. He has to live for a lifetime out there. He doesn't want, he has to live for his buddies, his colleagues, his comrades. And today he's going to create competition there to get selected. I think it is changing. That's what I say, changing the DNA of the armed forces. Whereas I would do everything for my colleagues, give my life for them, make sure nothing comes to them, and out it's competition, risk aversion. Will he fight for this thing? No. He will compete to get selected. Please understand the aspirations of the youth. He wants a job. He wants it bad. It is not only he wants it bad. If he doesn't get selected, go back to the village, and that gaon pura will tell him, "Tu to sala fail ho ke aa gaya wahan se. You were rejected." He'll go back dejected. He'll go frustrated. He'll stick a second career. No, it's a dream to join the armed forces. Are we trying to inculcate a sort of a competition in the men? No, we have to build them as a team. That is where we survive. One mistake, especially in a frontline unit, it'll impact the complete, not only the mission, it'll impact on the casualties. You'll feel more and more casualties. So that's there's a question I'd like to jump there because BGB is the question, and he's a mentor guide and philosopher in the regiment.
Please,
He's taught me minimum input, maximum output. So that's what I learned from him. As far as the regiment is concerned, there no Agnipaths come to the regiment, fortunately. So that is a very small portion. We'll only get people who have been fully selected after 4 years and 1 month break, and they come in, and the selection process starts from there. Because we are the largest voluntary army in the world, and if we do not get the best material, I think why should we be the largest voluntary army? And now the best material will go to state armed police, state police, CAPF, so every other place. So that's what I'm trying to say, that we are changing too many things, too many intangibles, just for one tangible, which is the money factor.
Right, sir. I have a slightly different question to all of us. Lot has been spoken of reducing the age of the armed forces. The world has changed. Longevity of life has increased. Medical facilities have improved vastly. Everything has gone up. You see Mahendra Dhoni playing at 40 like any other good cricketer. You see Dinesh Karthik coming back. You see Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. They're never going to stop winning all those tournaments. What is it that has motivated us to take this drastic step to reduce age? Do you think are we not losing all the experience we've invested in, which stands us in good stead in battle? We'll start with A. Marshal, sir. And I would like all three of you to throw this weigh in on this. Are we that old at 32?
Yeah. No. So just one small point I want to add to the earlier question. This word about corruption happening at the time of selection that will take place after 4 years. Since the selection is going to be done by armed officers, personnel in uniform, I personally think we should not presuppose that our guys, we are indirectly, saying that our own guys are going to be corrupt. So I personally feel that like we have selected at induction stage, some kind of a selection process will take place at 4 years. And I think we should not presuppose that our people are going to be corrupt. I'll leave it at that.
So wait a minute, sir. Let me put this in perspective, because while you have made a thing, and there's a very serious problem. It's a very serious problem because, like I mentioned in the beginning, at that point of time, even officers in the Indian Army up to 2 years are not being assessed. You don't write an ACR on them. We did this away after very deliberate thought. Till a man becomes a Lance Naik, depending on the unit, 5 to 7 years, we don't assess him. There's not an ACR. Simple and straight. today we're going to convert this into a 100% assessment system, and that too based on which a competitive assessment system based on which his future is being decided, and that too in a time. And this is I think the Air Force, the way it is structured, can get away with it. The Army can't. The Navy might, because in a ship there is a stake, but I don't think so. My personal feel is it might not happen. But the Army can't, because for the Army it's a very live problem. In any unit, I'll come back to you, sir. In any unit, any battalion, any regiment, you always function at 50% strength of the officers, because they're all away on courses, you are underposted, and there's a perpetual shortage of officers. There's a deficiency of the Indian Army in officers, which has not gone away from the time I got commissioned to now. How are you going to assess them? You're not going to have a permanent company commander. You're not going to have a permanent company 2IC. The assessment process can't be left to the JCOs. The moment you leave it to the JCOs, that assessment process has questions. Whether it's corruption or not is a different story. It has huge questions. And this has to be round the year, every 6 months, based on which you're going to send a person out. And this is very difficult. You can't centralize it. And this is something which General Prakash Menon wrote about it today in the paper. Right? That in the unit, and especially in regimented arms, when I say regimented arms, where a person, when she enters a battery or a company, almost stays puts in that battery or company almost throughout. At least 50% stay within that same subunit, right? 80% stay within that same unit. I might be off by a few percent here and there, and General Bhatia will agree with me. You can't. What do you do in a special force unit where you have to blindfold yourself and give your life to the other man? Are they going to compete? That's the issue. And if they are going to compete, how are you going to assess them? The sanctity of this assessment is a huge question mark. Right? That's the point I'm trying to make, and I think everyone has made. General Bhatia, sir, please.
No, I think you covered it exceedingly well. I just add one more point to it. It was spoken about that we'll have a transparent, quantified system for selection. Now, quantified systems are good systems in many ways, but they're not very good systems in among the armed forces. We've seen that in quantified systems. I'll have a marksman, right? What do I do with the marksman who can't keep his eye open when in contact? I have no use for him whatsoever. Please understand that. Training is about knowledge, skill, and attitude. I can imbibe the knowledge and skill in any man given 6 months or 10 months. Where does the attitude come from? If he can't keep his eyes open, what use is it to me, please? You can get the gold medalist from Olympics, put him in front of a terrorist. He can't get his head up. So when we have a quantified system, what do we get? I really don't. I can't comprehend as a soldier. Because soldier is all about bonding, all about being one. We are dividing them into so many factors now. So we'll have to look at a number of things. I'm sure we should not go wrong in the quantified system for the men. And officers are not there to judge them. Let's face facts. There are no officers overburdened. We should be addressing reducing commitments. We should be reducing high visibility, high profile commitments. They're increasing by the day. Since we were in service, of course, we retired long years ago. So there are other issues. We have to take the whole thing as Agniveers are there now. Agnipath has come to being. We'll have to look at the way we function differently. So that is what I'm trying to say, that our functioning has to change with the aspirations of the youth. There has to be congruence between organization needs and the aspirations of the Agniveers now. Where does congruence come from? That's the key challenge.
All these high-level conceptual things apart, I think it's worth underscoring what will be the sort of administrative load to do any sort of non-subjective assessments in all fighting formations. How difficult it is to conduct an examination. And in any case, the moment you select those chaps, almost invariably, half the guys not selected are going to go to court and question your subjective selection. The first lot of Agniveers, when they get out, the government and the military better be prepared for a spate of challenges in court. Questioning not so much the Agnipath system as to questioning the criteria for selection of how they have been rejected. And we will get mired in this instead of honing our fighting skills, we'll be just stuck with administration and legalities. And surely it should be clear to everybody that you don't select. Firstly, you forget about how many years they're serving. Don't do this sort of selection in uniform. Just don't. You're really setting yourself up for problems.
Thank you, sir. I think we've covered a wide range. A lot of good things have come out. Yeah, we have a few congruences are there. We need Agnipath. We need short service. We need to downsize our forces. We need to save. We need to save on the pension bills. We need to fund modernization. That larger intent, I don't think we have a difference of opinion at all. But the methodology, the speed of change, the rate of transformation, how you handle this transformation, right? Have you compared this system with the existing system? And where are you going to go? Have you had the time? I mean, the sense I get from what I see in public, have you had the time to, get an individual service act on board to handle whatever is service specific? Has it come? I don't see that visibility. I'll be very honest with you. And I'm sure the current system, current leadership is also, transfixed mentally with this problem. How am I going to handle this problem? We are only highlighting these problems which are there. It is not trying to be critical of this thing. But equally, a very major point has come out is, as much as this whole system is transformative, the armed forces need to be focused on the operational effectiveness of the whole story. And I think the government has to take on the other issues, the relocation of Agniveers, whether in the form of ex-servicemen, X, Y, Z, is something which I think most of it is coming as afterthought at this point of time. To think that just because they've spent 4 years in the army, that they'll fit into every walk of life outside, I think we are hoping for too much. And to end it on a lighter note, I just heard a joke the other day, and it's on the WhatsApp. It's not something great. He says, "Look, what do you do? I'm serving in the army. What does your son do? He's a retired Agniveer." Now, that kind of a situation is not good for society. If you get what I'm trying to say, in a society where employment is always at stake, after you train him for 4 years and then send him out without a parachute to land, you know what happens. I leave it at that. It's been a very interesting discussion. I thank the panelists for giving their views freely and frankly, and I think they're valuable one way or the other. It's not a matter of for or against Agniveer. It is for the nation and it is for the services. It's the way people who take this discussion forward is the major issue, right? I also thank all the questions which have come up, and I hope we've been able to cover most of them. And those which we have not been able to cover, it's due to paucity of time. With this, sir, thanks a lot to the panelists, thanks to the audience, and over to you, General Gautam Murthy, sir.
I think we've had a marvelous and a very fascinating, no-holds-barred discussion. All that remains for me is, on behalf of Team CASA, let me thank Marshal Anil Chopra, General Vinod Bhatia, Vice Admiral Anil Chopra, and of course, moderator, Lieutenant General P.R. Shankar. I thank the participants who spared the valuable time to attend this webinar. I regret we are not able to take on all the questions, but most of them have been answered somewhere on the same lines, and so we could not. I thank General Dipinder for assisting me, and Mrs. Banali Singha Roy, our technical assistant. Thank you all very much. God bless and Jai Hind.
Thank you, generals. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists. God bless you. Yes.
Thank you very much, the organizers and all the participants. Thank you very much. It's been very interesting, and my co-panelists. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, Jai Hind. Thank you.
Jai Hind to the moderator. Thank you very much. Very
Thanks,
interesting.
sir.
So well conducted.
Thank you, sir.
As always.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Lovely. Have you stopped the